Welcome back to Established Dominance Fantasy Football. Ding here. And it's week 1. Get excited. And this is the Under Over Show, which is short for underappreciated and overhyped. And today we'll take a quick look at skill players who are most likely to exceed or come up short of their expectations this week. Of note, I don't consider kickers to be skill players, so they won't be discussed. Yep, I said it. Sorry, Clutch. I still love you, brother. Before we jump in, do me a favor. If you appreciate these non-AI podcasts, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and follow me on X at Established Dominance. All right, let's not waste any time and jump right in. We'll start with the underappreciated. At the quarterback category, Matt Stafford. He's coming back home. He's got healthy wide receivers and a chip on his shoulder after losing to Detroit in the playoffs. Yeah, loved that. Now, Detroit retooled a cornerback in the draft, which will make things tougher for him. It's a couple of rookies. They haven't seen Puka and Kupp, and those guys are elite. And this game has the biggest over-under in Vegas, which confirms my thoughts. There's a shootout coming. The second quarterback is Allen. Now he's home to Arizona, who's completely overmatched. I'm expecting 4 touchdowns total, 2 passing, 2 running if I had to guess. If you're a Cook owner, that's bad news. It's a cakewalk to start the season, and even if his wide receivers are banged up, Buffalo is favored by almost 10, and it's a top 5 over-under ranking in Vegas, which is just more evidence of the beatdown that is inevitable. The last quarterback we're going to talk about is Richardson. The last time he played the Texans was the day he got hurt, and he hasn't played another regular game since. And while that's got to be on his mind entering the game, in that game he was dominating them on the ground with 2 first-quarter touchdowns. And now he's home against Houston, and their defense really hasn't gotten much better. And Houston could put up monster points, and Richardson's going to have to counter. And Vegas has this game as the second highest over-under for the weekend, with good reason. Moving on to the running backs, I have Jonathan Taylor as the first person we're going to talk about. Now, last time he played Houston, he dropped 188 yards and a touchdown on those guys. Richardson is probably going to vulture about 50 yards of that from him in a touchdown, but JT should have a great chance to break 100 plus on a TD this week. The worst problem for JT's production is Richardson's running ability, but I still think he has a great chance of overachieving. At number 2, I have Najee Harris. Now, Warren's been hurt most of the month, and even though he's back at practice, this is setting up for like a 20-plus touch performance for Harris. And Yahoo has him scoring less than 10 points, which I think is very conservative. I see him easily exceeding that. His only issue is, weirdly, Cordarrelle Patterson, who is returning back to home to Atlanta. I could see a design play for him and a short yardage touchdown, where he vultures Harris. Just call it a hunch, but I still think Harris has a great week. And last, I have Derrick Henry. Now, 2 years ago, he gutted KC for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know he's on a different team, but there are probably some Chiefs who still have internal bruising from that game. I see some ice baths in KC's future. Fire up Henry. Moving on to wide receivers, I'll start off with Nico Collins. Last year, he played the Colts twice and had his biggest games of the season, averaging 8 receptions and 150-plus yards and a touchdown in each one of those contests. Now, Diggs, yep, he's on the team now, but he doesn't really take anything away from him. It'll give him better looks because Houston can't concentrate on him, honestly. Vegas agrees. It's going to be a high-scoring contest, and the over-under is 48.5. The second wide receiver is Pitman. Same game, by the way. Richardson's back. He loves targeting Pitman. It's a divisional game with a high over-under, just like Collins, and he's an easy candidate for 100 yards and a touchdown. I expect him to be a top 10 wide receiver this year. Fire him up. And last is Jaden Reed. Now, everyone is confused as to who's going to be the wide receiver 1 out of Green Bay. And yet, here's the guy that dominated all season long last year as a runner and a receiver while everyone else was hurt. Now that they're back, healthy, Watson and Dobbs, he's supposed to just take a back seat? No, I don't think so. This is a high-scoring game, and it's a no-brainer. I'll give you a bonus. T. Higgins. The Chase saga continues, and Higgins could be in line for a huge day if Chase continues to wear his street clothes and work on his mani-pedi on the sidelines. And it's even the Patriots at home. Higgins is going to be a monster. Moving on to tight ends. I have Ingram. He was the number 2 PPR tight end last year, and I think he's going to have a monster year this year. Now they're going up against Miami, so you know that they need points. The wide receiver core is not as good as last year. Ridley's gone, so if they have any chance of winning, Ingram has to be highly involved. The second tight end is Gesicki. Now with Chase potentially on a snap count or not playing at all, Burrow's going to need someone he's on the same page with in practice and a proven veteran who could bail him out. And most likely, this will lead to maybe 6 or 7 catches, hopefully a touchdown. He's definitely going to outperform. Yahoo has him only scoring 3 points. So he's probably one of your backup tight ends, but if you got Bowers as a primary, I'd fire up Gesicki first. All right, let's move on to the overhyped. At the quarterback position, we're going to start off with Aaron Rodgers. Now he's on a new team. He hasn't played in a year. He has to go into San Francisco, which is really tough to play. And oh, by the way, if you're not careful, you're going to get shot. Sorry about that, Ricky. Hope you're feeling better. But they've got an elite defense. He also hasn't even played with Garrett Wilson in the regular season, or at least not enough in practice to really warrant a Jedi mind meld status. And this has train wreck written all over it. I'm looking at a heavy run game script early and a sub 20-point performance. This is not the quarterback you're looking for. Move along. Move along. Next is Joe Burrow. Now, Chase is vacationing. Their timing is going to be totally off even if he comes back, which would include a limited snap count because he's out of football shape. He's got a new running back in Moss, who's not as good as Mixon. Let's be honest with each other. All right, he's got a new tight end in Gesicki, who he's been practicing with. I think it's going to take some time for these guys to gel, especially if Chase is out. Vegas reflects this game as a big blowout, but also tied for the lowest over-under of the week. And that could change if Chase signs, but we're only 1 week out, and it's probably too close for the coach to even play Chase at this point. All of this caps Burrow's upside. And last is Justin Herbert. Now, he's had plantar fasciitis the whole summer, which limits his mobility and will probably be a problem all season. And that's a painful injury to overcome. He's still probably in pain. He's playing at home, which is the only thing he really has going for him. But Las Vegas, they bring a lot of pressure, and they're underrated defense. Add in that he's working with a new coach who likes to run first and a wide receiver core that's a shell of itself, young and inexperienced. And Vegas predicts a low over-under of 41.5, so there's not a lot of implied upside for Herbert. All right, overhyped at running back. We'll start with Kiren Williams. Now, in my best ball leagues this year, I had to get Kiren Williams twice. Unfortunately, I was in the middle of the pack. You know how it is. You're looking between ETN and Kiren Williams in the second round. And sometimes I had Kiren, sometimes I got ETN. Both great backs. But this week, Kyron's in trouble. Detroit's stout against the run. They pretty much shut him down in the playoff game. Blake Corm could steal some of his carries and goal line looks as well, and that's an issue. And then add in the final embarrassment. According to the coach, he'll be returning punts as well. And I'll be covering my eyes hoping he doesn't take some late hit by a rookie trying to get a highlight reel out of it. All right? What a joke. Consider yourself lucky if he comes out of this game and he's not hurt. All right, the second running back we're looking at is James Cook. And on paper, this should be a decent matchup for him. Yahoo thinks he scores 13 points in a non-PPR. That's pretty good. But Allen's always trying to vulture touchdowns and make himself look good, and I don't think anything changes here. Cook will probably get shut out in that department. And then there's a chance Ray Davis gets some carries when the game is both competitive and there's garbage time, since the Bills are expected to win easily at home. All right, the last running back is DeAndre Swift. Now, I just drafted him today in my last best ball league. I like him. He's on a new team, but he's got a rookie quarterback, loves to vulture touchdowns, scoring 11 rushing at USC, so the guy's going to run a lot. They're playing a tough team who's tough against the run in Tennessee, and thankfully they're at home, but that's about it. All right, moving on to wide receiver. My first victim is Deontay Johnson. Now, I beg to differ with some people, but he's not a difference maker, nor is he an elite wide receiver. His lack of height and size will not do him any favors with a quarterback who lacks accuracy. And Carolina struggled all year long under Young. So they drafted Leggett and they signed Johnson. But it really can't make up for the fact that they just don't have a good quarterback. This is going to be a low-scoring game. Vegas has it tied for last place with good reason in the over-under. So if you have someone else to play, I would. Second is Jamar Chase, for all of the reasons that we already talked about. All right? This is a train wreck coming. Last is Ayuk. Now, Purdy's going to be under a lot of pressure from New York, and he'll see a lot of Sauce Gardner in coverage. It's not an ideal matchup for Ayuk. Now, I know he's probably somebody you picked up in the second or third round, so you're going to play him anyway. But temper your expectations, all right? Vegas already thinks it's going to be a low-scoring game on Monday night. Probably not a guy you're going to put in your daily fantasy lineups. And finally, let's talk about tight ends. You've already heard me say it, but Bowers is definitely going to be an underachiever this week. He's still hurt, but he might practice finally this week. He's probably going to be on a snap count, and he's going to share time with Meyer. I would avoid this if you have another backup. And then second is Goddard. He's a starter on a high-scoring team this weekend, but he just started practicing after an injury, and there's just too many mouths to feed on Philly. He's a liability at this point. All right. In some cases, these players are probably your first or second round draft picks, and you really can't afford to sit them. But in the case of like Bowers and others, it might be best to check out the waiver wires for help. In Bowers' case specifically, Taysom Hill is available in a lot of 12-team leagues on Yahoo, and he's a good option. Also, if you're a daily fantasy player, you could create a nice stack with Richardson, Pitman, Collins, Higgins, and Ingram. I did that this evening. You can get plenty of remaining running backs with the budget you've got left over. Like I always say, go with your gut, and good luck this week. Now, before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to our men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And finally, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you can stay up to date on our latest content. Until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase, it's a commitment. Are you ready?